After nearly 2 months of work on the walls, windows and openings, it's possible that this week we might just finish this phase of work, especially as over the weekend I changed the plans slightly, which will mean less work needs to be done. However, this good weather at the start of the week is not due to last. So we'll just have to see how much work we can get done before any rain might arrive, when we'll probably have to move our work inside. But on the first day, it was a beautiful, clear morning, and I arrived early to open up and get ready for discussing the plans with the team. After an initial chat about stretches, Haggy, Sam and I headed to the back wall, where I wanted all of us to combine for the work on the next window. First, clearing up along the wall, both under the intended new window and to the side to free up more space. And with the space freed up, it was time to get scaffolding up. And then to measure some levels and window lines. While the team worked on the back wall, Rex was kindly back on the site and preparing the front area for work later in the day. Shifting the rubble from under the new window and picking out better stones for using soon. At the back, the team were now chipping out stones for an exterior beam. I was moving rubble and picking out better stones for using shortly. And Sam was delivering supplies from the side. Before we all paused for the mid-morning break. After which the team got to work on the new beam at the back. And once in place, they were ready to start using the better stones they had taken out and the ones that I had been separating from the rubble. Just as Rex was finishing his work at the front, the work on the back wall beam was complete, and we all started to move to the front to repeat the process. Once the scaffolding was up, we checked the position of the intended new window. And as the stone removing started on the outside, I headed to the inside wall to clear some space. I grabbed some lunch while following the progress. With the exterior beam in place on the front, we all moved inside to set up the workspaces. We were taking this slightly different approach to the window work in case of the bad weather later in the week, and trying to get as much outdoor work done early in the week so that we could do more work indoors later on if we had to, including a return to Miguel's window work in the middle room above the old stairs. With the work area set up, Haggy and Miguel then split to work on a window each. I started some more rubble sorting downstairs, but I was soon called back to provide some support. Including smoothing out some of the new mortar from the morning. In the final hour, the team made good progress in preparing for the interior beams. On the second morning, the weather had already changed and there was low cloud around and some light rain in the air. While I was opening up, the team arrived and they quickly got back into the work with the lifting in of the interior beam for the back wall window. And with the beam in place, I was back to rubble sorting to make sure the workspace remained relatively clear and that we had better stones ready to go back in the walls above the beams, which was going to require a lot of mortar that Sam was going to have to make and lift up, and I was going to have to relay to the windows, which, when combined with rubble sorting and stone picking, kept me busy all morning. The demand for mortar didn't drop off, and at times I felt like I was going around in circles, which was kind of how the whole week would end up feeling, and gave me an even greater appreciation for the support workers Sam and Fodo previously. After the break, Haggy was now starting to remove stones below the beam in his window. And Miguel was finishing the stone and mortar work on his wider back window. Before he too started to clear stones from below. While Sam and I now needed to deliver hollow bricks for the work that would soon start on the window edges. Although there was a lot of cloud around, thankfully it hadn't yet rained and we were making good progress with the final 2 windows. And after discussing work plans with the building team's boss, we agreed that at the end of this week, the team would briefly move on to another site for a short period before returning to prepare for the next phase of work on the roof. But there was still plenty more window work to do and a series of other related tasks that also needed to get done. And there was still a lot of support work upstairs that they needed me to do. Towards the end of the day, Haggy was finishing the work on the smaller window, which would free him up for some other tasks for the rest of the week. The weather on day 3 started much the same as the day before, and the forecast for the next 2 days was now looking pretty grim. So when the team arrived, they got straight into work they wanted to complete before any rain. First of all, taking down the scaffolding from the back wall. We then moved inside and Haggy got started on work to create some temporary barriers on the new side entrance, both for security and to reduce the exposure to wind and rain. While Miguel was back to his window work and in need of mortar deliveries. Rex was also back to provide some much needed support on tidying up certain areas and to pick out more stones that the team would be needing later on. My next bit of prep work for the rain was to get the temporary drain pipes back in place. With Haggy having done an excellent job on closing out the side entrance, he now moved on to temporary fill-ins for the small windows next to it. Rex was back outside sorting more rubble from Haggy's earlier window work. While Miguel had finished on the bigger back window and now needed a different sort of delivery from below. So that we could put temporary brick boards in the window for both security and protection from the rain, which meant that I wouldn't now be able to properly present the view from the window or the full impact of more light on this room. But from what I did experience, I think this final window might transform its room more than perhaps any of the other openings. Having finished the fill-ins on the lower windows, Haggy moved on to his next task, which we had been waiting to do on a rainy day. And that was the building up of the wall edge beneath the beam we had put in during the roof work when we had removed a large part of the wall between the two rooms. This was going to require a lot of bricks to be lifted in and a lot more mortar later on. In between lifting supplies, Sam was now cutting cornerstones needed for the next day. and Miguel was getting ready to work on the window we opened up last week, which we had decided could be done on a rainy day. I was able to grab a quick bite to eat before helping Sam with cleaning and cutting the bricks that I had put to one side last week and that Miguel was now going to use for building an arch above the window. This is the only window we wanted to give a brick top edge inside, so that it would match the one on the right side of these three back wall windows. After saying goodbye to the team, I headed back for some final preparations for rain. During which I enjoyed very much seeing this bird of prey hovering in the wind. On the fourth morning, the hills were covered in low cloud, and although it had rained a bit the night before, it was relatively dry when I arrived, albeit the cloud or fog had really reduced visibility. But we were reasonably prepared for working inside. And for the first time, I put the plastic covers to use to get some more light inside. Then I was back to the drudgery of mortar delivery. with the occasional lifting up of bricks thrown in. Haggy continued with his wall edge, and Miguel added stones above the brick arch. There were then various changes of scaffolding for both Haggy and Miguel, as Haggy worked up higher and Miguel moved on to work on the middle window, while I returned to more rubble sorting to make sure we had enough stones ready to use. Before heading out for the mid-morning break and a bit of a weather check. Plenty more mortar was now required, as Miguel was now filling in with stones the lower part of the middle window. I was briefly outside to bolster our indoor stone supply before the stones Rex had picked out earlier got too wet in the rain that was now starting. And once again, I was called back for some more immediate support. When the rain did start to get heavier, Sam was well prepared for it, and he kept up his awesome job of doing all the preparation and lifting work outside and below. With minimal visibility outside, an indoor wall proved more interesting than usual for my lunch break. I was then back upstairs, supporting the good progress on the walls.
Patatas y esto que no saben ni tocar piloto.
With the rain getting heavier, I did head out briefly to check on the drain pipes, which seemed to be working just fine. With the rain getting heavier, I was pretty glad the day was over and to have a chance to get dry, at least for a few hours. Because on the last morning of the week, just as had been forecast, the weather was even worse. When the team arrived, they first of all organised some things for when they would be off site. And then we were all back upstairs. Having finished his pillar of bricks, Haggy would be moving on to some stonework, and Miguel would be building up the edges of the 2 existing back wall windows with some cornerstones. While Sam and I were back on mortar duty. And I was occasionally organising or picking out stones. By the mid-morning break, it was looking even more grim outside. And I was almost glad to be back upstairs afterwards. The Costa Brava rally was passing on the main road in the hills, and we knew it had started by the intermittent roar of engines in the mist. Haggy was making good progress filling in the old alcove next to the front window, and Miguel had now moved on to some repair work on the wall next to the back one. I had time for a quick lunch before being called back for almost the last mortar lifting of the week. With sufficient mortar in place, I went to visit the rally and to double check the time when we would be able to use the road in order to get home. I was then back upstairs to see Haggy finishing his filling in. Miguel removing the prop beneath his brick arch, and to make sure everything was ready for a quick exit at the relevant time. Well, the team are packed up and ready to go. We're going to have to wait 10 minutes or so for the rally to temporarily pause so that we can get out. Them to go that way and me to go that way. But this is the end of work for this week and the end of the initial phase of work on the doorways and windows. Unfortunately, my camera and microphone then had some big problems with the rain, and I wasn't able to record a proper end of week summary or my goodbye to the team, who will now be off-site for a couple of weeks. But in the coming days, I have got various work planned, and subject to the weather, I hope to be able to present the end results of our initial phase of window work. So please do tune in again next week to see how I get on.